Great rewards don't wait, so why should you? Through the Invigor Book and Buy Grower program, you could earn a $30 per bag rebate when you book all of your Invigor hybrid canola by November 14th. Talk to your retailer. Terms and conditions apply.
I'm Shaun Haney, and this is RealAg on the Weekend. Let's get real and get connected with the week that was in Canadian agriculture. RealAg on the Weekend starts now. Welcome to RealAg on the Weekend. I'm your host, Shaun Haney of RealAgriculture.com. Thanks for joining us here today for the program. I hope you had yourself a great week. It was a tremendous success. We've got a lot of harvest happening across Western Canadian prairies. And here's the thing. Overall, things are looking decent. Now, I know some of you are probably like, whoa. I'm just telling you in generalities. What I've been hearing is a little bit of it, people are saying a little bit above average, especially on some of that canola, which is a lot different than we saw last year, where canola really epically disappointed a lot of farmers as we had a ton of dry weather in the back half of the growing season. This year seems to be a little bit of the opposite. There's been a little bit more surprise out there when it comes to what some of the yields have been. And you know what? Honestly, based on some of the trade issues that canola is facing, this is a good thing. It's not going to cover all the losses for some people, but it's definitely not a bad thing to have a little bit more yield out in the field and a little bit more crop to market, even though the price is not exactly what you would ideally want if you had your choice. Okay, today on the show, we got a lot of stuff to cover here. We've got Eric Bienvenue. He is the CEO of Canada Beef. He's going to be with us to talk about some of the things that Canada Beef is doing around the world to tell the great story of Canadian beef product. We've got Dean Klippenstein from MNP with us. He was a recent guest on the Mind Your Farm Business podcast that is brought to you by RBC Royal Bank. And Dean's a legend, better known as Clipper. Dean is a legend when it comes to farm accounting circles in Canada, and with some of the tough margins out there for some producers in some of the sectors, good time to be talking about farm management. And then on a recent episode of the Farm Safety Roundup, we chatted about rural road safety with a farm safety consultant out of Ontario, Kristen Hoffman, joined me, and I'm going to play you a little bit of that today as well, because it is harvest time, and there's dual responsibilities here. There's responsibility for the people driving the equipment, you, the farmer, down the road, and there's also the responsibility of some of you urban people that are also driving down the road to give some room for some of that equipment. So that's a segment that is for all y'all, okay? For all y'all. Okay, if you have any feedback on today's program, you can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call that RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. You dial that number, press the number 2, and you leave me a message. I want to hear your thoughts, your concerns, your questions, suggestions, maybe just what you think about the show in general. Why not? Tell us. I want to hear from you. Okay, let's get to my conversation with Eric Bienvenue. He is the CEO of Canada Beef. We talked about the real opportunity for beef product around the world, especially in Latin America. Here's Eric.
Well, I would tell you that first, export balances your product mix. To think that we can solely depend on our Canadian market and having the same value as you just mentioned would probably be mistaken. So Japan is our second biggest market. As I said, it's matured. It brings home this year, compared to last year, about $8.78 per kg versus $8.22. The country is facing different challenges on the economics, on the currency variation, but as well looking at some maturity, aging population. And our goal there is to maintain our position, to maintain our market share. We sell about 10% of all of our volume to Japan, and our goal is to maintain it to 10%. South Korea shows great potential. We are in a disadvantage with the U.S. The U.S. has zero tariff. And one other thing that I would tell you is since Trump or the new government took power, they go at a speed to have new trade agreements that is unreal. And it kind of put Canada in a disadvantage. So for Korea, we are in a trade disadvantage with tariffs. In 2029, we're going to be playing in the same level as the U.S. Korea has shown tremendous increases. We've increased to by 2% our export to Korea, and I personally believe that we have a 6.9% market share of our export going to Korea. I think we can reach 10% easily. Vietnam, last year we've increased our sales to Vietnam. Taiwan, we see 43% increases this year so far. And again, it's working with our stakeholders, our meat packers. The Philippines is showing, as I said, tremendous potential. On the value, we've increased it to $7.43 compared to $6.99 last year per kg. However, the GDP, the average age consumer, and the disposable income keeps increasing in the Philippines as well as Indonesia. China, one thing that I would say is we don't have access, as you know, since the past 4 years, but remains a very, very important market for Canada. And we are pressing with CCA and CMC to regain access. I know the canola business is facing tremendous challenges, but for our beef industry, it is a market that we want to regain and regain fast.
Yeah. Is there a path there, or is that path sort of, I've often compared it to like there's a road. It's just constantly in like a blizzard, like where you know that you're going to get to the destination. Eventually we will have access again. We're just not exactly sure if we are 10 miles or 100 miles from town yet.
Do I think we're going to regain access? Yes. I believe personally that there's a process in place where not only Canada needs to find a new agreement with the U.S. first. Second, there's going to be the COSMA renegotiation, and thirdly, I think there will be an opening for a new agreement with China. I don't think we can go against it. We can go without it. It's just a matter of finding a landing ground. We have to be a little bit more patient, I guess. But I think I see resolution in the near future.
That's my conversation with Eric Bienvenue. He is the CEO of Canada Beef. If you want to hear that full discussion, you can go to RealAgriculture.com. We're back with more of RealAg on the weekend after this very quick break.
Don't miss the Prairie Oat Growers AGM Wednesday, December 3rd in Saskatoon. A full day of expert speakers, research, and insights capped off with keynote Simon Keith and evening entertainment by YouTube sensation, the Peterson Farm Brothers. Day passes start at $40. Register today at poga.ca.
If you're serious about agriculture, RealAg's got you covered.
For over 10 years, we've listened to and shared what producers have to say about everything from policy to agronomy from coast to coast.
Keep up with the latest in Canadian agriculture at RealAgriculture.com through daily newsletters and check out our YouTube channel.
Thanks for joining us in the RealAg community as we continue to cover and serve North American agriculture.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin, host of the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com. Throughout the year, on the Soybean School, we'll bring you timely agronomic video content from planting to harvest, from the latest agronomic research to the latest in production technology. Check out our massive video library on YouTube, RealAgriculture.com, or download the audio podcast versions wherever you get your podcasts. The Soybean School is brought to you by Mazix Seeds and Lalamon Plant Care.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
All that talk about beef in the last segment made me think of something really cool I did this week, which is I started the process of interviewing the 2025 class into the Canadian Agricultural Hall of Fame. I do this every year, and it's so much fun because you get a chance to really explore the careers of people that have contributed so much to the industry of agriculture in the country. And one of those people was Dennis Laycraft from the Canadian Cattle Association. I think he said 35 years at CCA. And we talked about some of those same export market and just the high quality beef coming out of Canada. This is some of the stuff that Dennis and I chatted about. I'm looking forward to bringing you some of that audio in the future. Okay, let's talk farm management. On a recent Mind Your Farm Business episode, which is brought to you by RBC Royal Bank, I chatted with really Canadian agricultural accounting legend Dean Klippenstein, better known as Clipper. And Dean and I chatted about a whole bunch of different topics. I can only play portions of the audio for you, but let's dig in. Here's Dean Klippenstein from MNP. Throughout your career, you've seen a lot of ups and downs, working in the accounting sector. Sometimes it feels like there's more downs than there's ups and vice versa. And right now we're kind of in a period of transition for sure. In your mind, what does it take to be a successful entrepreneur or farmer rancher in 2025?
Well, I think historically it always requires unwavering optimism, right? Because and if you're not in that mindset of unwavering optimism, you will default and grind yourself into paralysis on the fear of the negative. You have to be absolutely excited and prepared to do whatever it takes to get to the next crop or the next calf crop or the next harvest to make sure. And so that's number one. And it cannot be successful without that. And then now, obviously, hindsight makes us geniuses of when we should have expanded and when we should have bought and when we should have stretched the balance sheet and when we should have hunkered down and stockpiled cash. Like when Warren Buffett, for example, when Buffett liquidated a big portion of his Microsoft stock. I don't know how much it was, but it was a lot. And he took it to a cash position because he was afraid that it was getting a little teetering. Mm-hmm. Well, then it went multiple $1 billion higher than that after he sold. But he just wanted to store his wealth in cash to be ready to attack when opportunities came in front of him. And that's the same thing with agriculture, right? If in hindsight, we would have aggressively expanded in 04 and 05 and 06 and then hit the 07 to 2017 rocket ship. And then, but at a certain point, we want to dial back. If there's clouds in front of us, we want to dial back and beef up the balance sheet to build up a reserve or war chest of cash. Because what cash resources or low debt does for you, you can ride through what you believe is going to happen rather than have to react to a bank that's fearful. And so, but that's a hard ongoing mix. and it's hard to know where to switch those strategies.
Yeah, because we go through downturns where, you know, I think my dad said this phrase, whereas, you know, those with the best balance sheets win, right? And it kind of gives you not only the confidence, but it gives you the strength to be able to weather that storm. The weak balance sheet does not allow you to do that. No,
but and that's where when MNP benchmarks our clients, we do not benchmark it based on wealth and equity. That's obviously an important consideration, but we benchmark based on management results. And because sometimes aggressively leverage and extending the balance sheet was the best thing you could do.
Right.
Because you took advantage of opportunities that were in front of you.
So what does benchmarking on management results mean? Like, what is that? Is that quality of management? Is that just net income? What are you looking at?
That's a really good question. It's on the grain sector, we benchmark based on the gross margin results, which is your crop revenue less your direct measurable variable expenses: fertilizer, chemical, seed, crop, and hail insurance. And that less machinery and labor costs. So you're basically your profit prior to your, I'll call it balance sheet costs or land building and finance, if you've heard that term before.
Mm-hmm.
So real simple example. Shaun and Dean farm next to each other.
Yep.
We both produce the same crop. And we both run a pretty lean, efficient machinery line and labor pool. And we make $200 an acre before interest. And Shaun's independently wealthy and owns his 1,000 acres and doesn't pay any rent on it. And Dean is a young startup farm that is paying rent on every acre, right? Mm-hmm. Our net income, so I'm paying $150 an acre rent and you're paying none because you own it all. That doesn't mean you're a better farmer than I was, right? We produced the same crops. We did it with the same efficiency. And you made $200 an acre and I made 50 because I was paying rent for mine. And so that's separating the balance sheet.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Be honest if it doesn't.
Yeah, it does. No, it does.
That's an important clarification. And so we can never compare net income. So in that exact same example, if Shaun made $75 an acre because you didn't produce as good a crop as Dean, because for whatever reason you're not good or you're lazy or you're tired or you spend too much and you have too much shiny machinery and you made $75 an acre, but you have no land rent, and Dean made 50, but he has $150 an acre land rent.
Yeah.
That means Shaun is not executing as well for whatever reason. And so that's what I mean when I say management and then separate it from the balance sheet.
Yeah, it's like an execution efficiency. Like you're actually looking at the implementation of the operational strategy. Not to use a whole bunch of, it sounds like we're in an MBA class here, but essentially what you're doing.
No, and it's important. And obviously geography has a big play in it.
Yeah.
Right? If we take a great harvest in Yorkton, and then we take one of our friends in dryland southern Alberta with no rain, or southwest Saskatchewan, we're not going to beat up my buddy in Kincaid and say you did a bad job because you should have got 65 bushel canola like my friend in Yorkton.
Yep.
Because that's obviously a geographic difference. It's weather.
We'll be back with more of my conversation with Dean Klippenstein of MNP right after this.
With deep roots in agriculture, MNP helps farm businesses make confident financial decisions. From planning to growth, their advisors are here to help support your success. Learn more at mnp.ca.
RealAg Radio is Canada's only daily radio show focused on agriculture. Get expert advice on Agronomic Monday. Tuesdays and Wednesdays will cover a broad range of issues. Thursday we'll hear from farmers across the country on the Farmer Rapid Fire. And we'll wrap things up Fridays with the RealAg Issues panel with Kelvin Hepner and Lindsay Smith. Join us Monday through Friday at 4:30 Eastern. And don't forget about the replay at 7 in the morning on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Get all the information you need to keep your pulse crop healthy and profitable with the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School is a free YouTube video series covering agronomy, research, and more across a host of different pulse crops. It's also available as an audio podcast wherever you download or stream your favorite podcast. Check us out on YouTube or visit RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School, brought to you by BSF Canada. Let's get to more of my conversation with Dean Klippenstein of MNP. If we stick with that management result, management execution, if you look at the top, like the cream of the crop of your highest benchmark group,
yeah,
what are their characteristics? What are they doing that is different than the rest of the population?
I think, and we're on the starting edge of the evolution of this, as we start to get the information in usable format and get this massive amount of data into a usable format. But if you summed it up with, to me, it's the constant desire for improvement, right? And so if you always look at, and so because it's not an absolute, and you have to constantly push. And so I agree with your dad. I remember, and I'm a very cautious. Like, I've probably cost our clients a lot of money because we were worried about making sure the balance sheet was robust and never stretched. And in hindsight, we should have stretched it, right? In the land price escalation. And so I'm more in your dad's camp, talking about because I guarantee he's referencing the 80s.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
The families that were already wealthy.
Pretty much broke.
They rode through the 80s and they didn't get any wealthier, but they just treaded water.
Yep.
And so that's for sure the same mindset I'm in, that I liked when the balance sheet was there, because we can't get bullied out of the long-term strategy. But the other thing we often, with our really successful farms, is we fight complacency. Right? You take Shaun and Dean in that example. Shaun's making $75 an acre. He's living the great life and making lots of money, and Dean's only making 50. But Dean's executing at way higher level than Shaun, right? And so what we find is complacency is a bit of our enemy, right? I've rode on my client's a buddy of mine's combine, and his derm is running 80 and the neighbor's derm is running 70. Well, the only person who's unhappy with a 70 bushel derm crop is someone who knows that 80 is possible. And so that's what the benchmarks allow us to do. And this is not about MNP. This is just about the concept.
Yeah.
Because, and the improvements are not, if you looked at the target derm yield, if you looked at the target barley yield in Lethbridge 30 years ago, to the target barley yield in Lethbridge today, right? It is astronomically higher.
Yeah.
But the better we get, the more incremental those yield gains are. So if I compared it to, are you a golfer, Shaun?
Well, I aspire.
Yeah. I'm a terrible golfer.
Well, maybe you and I are more alike than we think.
But the beautiful thing about a terrible golfer is that it's easy to improve, right? If I go to a golf coach and say, I shoot 110 and I want to shoot 105, I don't have to work as hard to improve those 5 strokes. If you go to a golf coach and say, I shoot 80 and I want to shoot 75, those are drastically harder. You have to put way more effort, and you're not going to get big incremental gains. You're fine tuning. That's the same with crop production and improvement of these farm businesses. because they are commodity production. And so to get a bushel yield change, you got to do a lot of stuff on a really high level functioning farm today.
Nick Saban, legendary college football coach, has a great quote on complacency, Dean. Complacency creates a blatant disregard for doing what is right. Success hinges on doing the work, while complacency is full of indifference.
That is a great quote. That is a great quote because so if you look at our best farms, they're always unhappy. Right?
Yeah, right. Yes.
They're always.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Shaun.
Well, I was going to say, Dean, I think that's very true. And it's like this, there's this conflict. You have, we were talking about the 80s. So you have where that hard time can really stain your appetite for risk going forward, even when everything is saying, we should be going for it. But you're still pulling on the reins. You're scared to let go. And
paralyzing.
It's paralyzing. And then you have farms where, hey, in the last 10 years, it's been pretty bloody good. And you haven't seen any of those downtimes, so you really don't understand some of the downside risk, and it's not all like how it has been. And both are very dangerous in many regards.
But both are very dangerous. And we hear lots of people talking about the big farms and big farms getting extended and having it obviously tougher to expand today than it was 15 years ago. And I always tell them, I said, well, I don't want to judge those folks very well because I would have never had the appetite or mindset to be able to grow it as much as they did. Right?
Yeah.
If you got a farm that grew to 30,000 acres and they started at 3, well, I would have, as a cautious, more in your dad's camp, I would have been more pulling on the reins and slowed down at 5,000 acres. So who am I to judge that the mistakes he or she made that it should have stopped at 21,000 acres instead of going to 30, right? And so fundamentally, what I think, if you had to summarize it, you want to always strive to improve and execute your strategy. Whatever your strategy is, you have to fully believe in it.
Mm.
And you have to fully go for it. And no one else you can have other people assist you, but it has to be your own personal guidance. And I always tell people is that really that's what you need to do to empower your business partners and advisors, to let them know where you're aiming. And so I'm going to give a ridiculous, absurd example is I had a brothers, clients of mine, friends of mine, and they were fabulous, really profitable, and farmed 15,000 acres. And I said, and they were very young and very wealthy. And I said, as ridiculous as it sounds, we can't help you until you tell us where you want to go. I said, so let's pick two extreme examples to illustrate it. I said, if you want to retire by the time you're 40 and drink Mai Tais on the beach in Mexico, that's completely possible. And what are decisions to execute to accomplish that? Well, once that as our endpoint is determined, every decision that comes in front of us is simple when put into that lens.
Mm. You've been listening to my conversation with Dean Klippenstein of MNP on a recent Mind Your Farm Business episode. You can go to mindyourfarmbusiness.com to listen to the full interview. Highly encourage you to do that. Or, of course, go to RealAgriculture.com. When we come back on Real Ag on the Weekend, we're going to talk rural road safety up next.
Crush it with Maizex canola. Maizex Seeds is 100% focused on Canadian farmers. Your source for high-performance grain, silage, and grazing corn, as well as soybeans and, new for 2026, canola. Visit Maizex.com to find your local Maizex representative.
I would Mackenzie Smith, host of The Agronomist, and I want to thank you for tuning in for over 200 episodes of our beloved little program. Join me Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube for our live and interactive agronomy Q&A. Each week, our guest panel will handle some of your toughest agronomic questions live, streaming on YouTube, Facebook, X, and RealAgriculture.com. Tune in Monday nights or go to realagriculture.com/agronomist and sign up for our email notifications and don't miss an episode.
The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is a video series that showcases the latest in canola research and production agronomy. Learn from some of the best at your own pace through quick and timely producer-focused videos available on our YouTube channel. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is the quickest way to keep up to date on all the latest in canola production. Boost your canola IQ with the Canola School, brought to you by BASF, and visit canolaschool.com.
With harvest in the air, there's a lot of activity. We've got traffic, and we've got the regular traffic, but then we've also got combines and trucks and grain carts, and there's a lot happening. We got to stay safe. This is for all of you out there. I don't care if you're farmers or you live in the city and you just get outside of the city once in a while and you're driving around. Farm equipment on the road is dangerous, and we've all got to be paying attention to rural road safety. Recently, on a Farm Safety Roundup, we talked to Kristen Hoffman, who is with Workplace Safety and Prevention Services in Ontario, and we talked about rural road safety. Here's a portion of that conversation. Farm equipment has the right to be on the road, but there are challenges, okay? What are some examples of incidents involving equipment on some of our rural roads?
So in those statistics that you shared, collisions may involve ATVs, UTVs, self-propelled implements, and tractors. And a lot of those even happen in daylight hours, often to the rear of the farm equipment. Picture the fast-moving vehicle on a roadway suddenly is on the rear of a slow-moving, large or not, piece of farm equipment. In my region, we have had over the years several incidents. One, a van that did collide with a combine on its rear. And we think about that size difference. The combine is big. The van is not so big. The force of that impact was still enough that it broke the rear axle of the combine, sent the combine off the road, and the operator was tossed around as you would expect in that cab, if not secured in that seat. The van driver was killed during that impact. We have another in the last while where we have that big equipment on the road, a tractor with a towed cultivator. And unfortunately, that cultivator was not in its transport position. The wings were still out over the center line on that road. And again, whether it's a small or large vehicle, anything oncoming needs some space on that other side. And in this particular incident, a motorcycle came over a hill. The tractor operator may not have seen the bike. The bike did not see the tractor until that bike collided with the wing of the cultivator. And the driver of that bike was killed.
Yeah.
Some of the time, the collisions really just involve the farm equipment, those rollovers and upsets that we have without other vehicles, but always an upset for those involved.
Yeah, that's a really good point. A lot of rural roads don't have the shoulder that you would see on more of a major road, and so that, and especially, in certain parts of the country, you get into that, the frost is coming out and you get that soft shoulder. So there is that's a really good point. Some of this is also solo, not necessarily two pieces of like a vehicle and a piece of machinery colliding. So what are the most important preps that a farm, because there's dual responsibility here, right? There's the responsibility of the non-farming traffic, but there's also responsibility for the farmer as well. So what are some of the most important preps that a farmer should make before taking farm equipment on the highway?
Because that is what the farmer does have direct control over. What you can do to prepare yourself and your equipment when you are out on the road. We are going to encounter others that may not prepare as well as you have. So what can you do then to manage those exposures? Prepare yourself, prepare your equipment, have a close look at your equipment, check attachments, lights, mirrors, tires, all of the pieces that you will need to travel on farm and on road safely. Check that equipment on the route. Plan yourself an area where you can get off to a safe location to continue to check your load is secure, your lights and your slow moving vehicle or SMV sign are still visible. And especially when we are going from road to field and field to road through those transitions, have you picked up a whole lot of dirt, mud, otherwise when you've been working? Check before you head out onto the road that you're going to be well seen by those others who are on the road. On that point of the slow moving vehicle sign or SMV sign, be sure that it's not only on your power unit, your tractor quite often, but also that rearmost towed implement that you have. If you have a series of gravity boxes or wagons, that last one in line needs to have that triangle. So it alerts, we hope, those who are coming up behind us quite fast that we're moving just a little bit slower. Lighting and reflectors, generally, we want white to the front and red to the rear, just like any other vehicle on the roadway. So be sure to not use your field lights, the white on the rear, once you get out onto the road. That becomes really confusing for others who are on the road coming up to the rear of farm equipment if they're looking into two white lights or one white light at the back of that equipment. And generally, we expect to have lights on or in conditions when we are not visible about that 1/2 hour before sunset to 1/2 hour after sunrise, or if it's foggy, rainy, or snowy, light yourself up like Christmas decorations so that you are well seen when you're out on the road.
Now, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to add, and check your capacity and equipment. Check your capacity. Make sure that your equipment is designed for the loads you're going to make it work. Make sure the tractor or vehicle can handle that weight safely. You've got proper braking. You're going to get stopped when you need to.
Now, one of the most contentious topics related to all of this is age. Okay? So on private property, at least in most provinces, there's no legal age restrictions that changes once you hit a public road. Who should be driving farm equipment on public roads, and why is it important to match driver age and experience to equipment? Let's talk about that.
So in Ontario and most of the jurisdictions across Canada, operators of farm equipment must be 16 years or older to drive farm equipment on public roadways. They may not require a license. However, it is important to note that if they do have a license and it has been suspended for impaired specifically, those operators are not permitted to drive the farm equipment on the road or be in public spaces. Now, I'll encourage as well, consider age-appropriate activities, license or not, 16 or not, ensure that we meet those minimum requirements, but perhaps that self-propelled sprayer is best under the handling of an operator who's been on the road for a few years rather than their first time out with farm equipment. Communication, training, experience, and that check-in with supervision is so important whether we're on farm or on the road with our farm equipment.
That was a portion of my chat with Kristen Hoffman with Workplace Safety and Prevention Services. WSPS does some great work in Ontario. There is other organizations as well across the Western Canadian prairies. It's a great reminder. Check out the rest of that conversation with Kristen. Other episodes talking about farm safety for the Farm Safety Roundup. They can find that all at RealAgriculture.com. Okay, if you have any feedback on what you heard today, we'd love to hear from you. Your thoughts, your concerns. Maybe you got a take. Maybe there's something you heard today where you're like, whoa. Wait a minute, Haney. Listen here. We need to talk about this. A couple ways to do that. Okay, first of all, Real Agriculture is across all the social media platforms. Okay? TikTok, Instagram, X, Facebook, YouTube, whatever. Also, you can call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147, or send me an email at shaney@realagriculture.com. Thanks to everybody for getting real and getting connected with RealAg on the weekend.